Hello, BookTube. Well, it's Friday. Beautiful Friday here. Only just recently, actually, while I've sat down to make videos, the blue sky has gone away and a low deck of clouds has rolled in. That deck of clouds is going to rule the universe for the next 4 days, I think. But the day was beautiful. The Friday was beautiful, nice and full of stuff to do, full of people to chat with and to email. And my little dog who's feeling, thank you all of you for asking about her. Word has slowly, I haven't said anything, but word has slowly percolated out that the reason I was gone for a week was because, not that I was feeling poorly, but that Frida was feeling poorly. And I've been just swamped with messages from people saying, she's a part of our lives too. One message said that. She's a part of our lives too. That really got me. So I really appreciate that, but she's feeling fine. So it's been a wonderful, wonderful day. But it is a Friday. And on Friday, booktubers tend to talk about Friday reads. Friday reads, weekend, the weekend reading report, a Monday roundup of what you did in the previous week. I love those kinds of videos. I ought to make one every week, but I get so caught up, ironically enough, in reading that I tend not to. But I've assembled a few things that I have been reading lately. This is not my total for the week. I guess I'm not supposed to talk about totals. I guess we're not supposed to be number obsessed on BookTube. But I wouldn't talk about my total anyway because, those of you who have been here for a long time and know that I'm not trying to rub anybody's nose in anything, despite my jokes about reading at head injury speed. I should stop telling that joke. But those of you who have been here for a while will already know that my number is weird. It would be your number too if all you did was read. And people who haven't been here all that time and hear such a number are going to say, "Oh, he's lying. Oh, he's lying." And they won't just say it privately. They'll be sure to pipe up in the comments with an unbelievable insult because that's the 21st century. So there's no reason for me to mention my number this week. It's nice and healthy. But I won't go through all of them. I'll go through some. Like we start, for instance, with something that I think was recommended to me by one of those daily deal services that I sign up for, where you give them your email address, which is currency, so use it sparingly. You give them your email address and they send you a roundup of the day's ebook deals for $3.99 or $2.99 or 99 cents or free. I ignore all the offers for anything that isn't free. And if it's free, I will almost always take it. Just send it to my Kindle. It's all very easy to do. And then the next time I'm on the Kindle, let's say I'm reading some advanced copy, we're going to see some of them, and I finish with it, and I think, all right, well, but let's see what the self-publishing world is doing. I sent a whole bunch of titles to myself first thing in the morning. I've forgotten about them. Let's read one of those. Pretty sure that this was that. And this is also for the gays. Got to have something for the gays. Also got an AI cover. Very nice AI cover. This is by T.N. Teague, and it's called Brittle Truths. Why we can't have more AI covers like that, I do not know. Although, you're not going to be able to really make it out in the low lighting here. But what is it with AI and matching eyes? They don't ever seem to be able to do it. And it always seems to be the left eye that's the problem. It's just a tiny problem. It's not like it's Inspector Dreyfus. It's Inspector Dreyfus. It's not like it's a tick or anything. But anyway, this is a standard romance novel. A guy who's been burned and is going home for the first time in years finds an old lover of his at home. They're long since over. Thought that emotions were dead. Turns out emotions might not be dead. They might be able to reconnect as new and different people. It's a familiar thing, but I thought it was done here with a lot of heart. I kind of liked it. And as is always my case, and it should be your case too, if I read this for free on one of those email sites and I like it, this or anything, and I like it, then that author has earned a customer. Indie's not the same thing as all the publishers who send me books every day. Indie people need the money. They're out there all by themselves. They don't have the superstructure of Simon & Schuster or Random House. Not that those superstructures do you much good anymore, but they don't even have that. They're out there on their own. And they sign up for these things, for these daily deal type things, in order to find new customers. Well, if you read their book and you really like it, you are a reader of theirs. So don't stint them the money. Go and buy their latest book. That's what I do anyway. I've got a nice, big, healthy stable of authors that I have alerts for, and I just buy their stuff. But I enjoyed this as contemporary gay fiction. It's It's got all the drawbacks. It's too heavy on slang. It's not, the prose is not really worked over for its uh, complexity, I guess would be the nice way to say it. I wish that it were. I feel certain that most of these authors could do that, but they're probably writing 4 books a year. So, anyway, this next one is I don't remember when this is coming out. This was a PDF. It was an advanced copy. This is by David Narrett, and it's called "The Cherokees in War and Peace," and it was really good. It was really, really good. A history of the Cherokee people and the various Cherokee nations, as much as can be reconstituted for people who for 50,000 years were an oral culture. So naturally, an account like this is going to be slanted at least a little towards written cultures. Unfortunately, the written cultures were written cultures of their conquerors and despoilers. I thought this did a remarkably good balancing job there. Of course, this is my first read through. I'll wait till I get the finished copy to read it a second time with a pencil in hand, take notes and whatnot. But I really enjoyed this. It was really serious. Of course, it's grim history, but really, really good. And when I read this and really liked it, that led me on to another book that I read this week, which was the last great book on that subject, John Ayle's book, Trail of Tears, The Rise and Fall of the Cherokee Nation, which is, I think this is 40 years old, 30 years old, something like that. It won all sorts of critical acclaim when it first came out. I loved it. I read it when it first came out and loved it. I reread it because of Narrett's book. I read Narrett's book and then I reread this book. This book puts a little more emphasis on just the unending serial betrayals of the Cherokee people by the United States of America. Just one betrayal after another. This is a sovereign nation that was it's just pure, unadulterated racism. Just as pure as you could be. You would not treat a treaty that you made with the French the way you treat the treaties here. And it's because of what the people look like. Or maybe you would. Maybe you would just disregard your treaties with the French if they were on the same soil as you and didn't have your technology. So they couldn't defeat you. Either way, both books together are outraging. This is a little bit more intentionally outraging. I loved it the second time around, though. What I wouldn't give to find a hardcover copy of this, I would like to have it, to have a hardcover copy. This book, Ayle's book, The Trail of Tears, led me to another book, a much more recent book. This is by Naomi Schaefer Riley. This also got praised universally. I think I was one of those people. I think I praised this in print. This is The New Trail of Tears. And it's about the fact that Native Americans on American soil today, I think this came out 10 years ago, are second or third class citizens. They're kenned and pennelled up, and for every one, penned and kennelled, I think that should be, for every one or two instances where a Native American community strikes it rich or does well, manages to negotiate a good treaty for natural resources or casinos on its own land, there are 100 cases where it's abject poverty and drug addiction and gangs and violence and a complete neglect or victimization by the U.S. government still, 100 years later. This is biting stuff. I love this book. Just love it. Again, I had a physical copy of this. I'm pretty sure I reviewed it, but I don't anymore. And with things like this, books like this, I never see them in the wild. Nonfiction from the last 15 years, I never see it in the wild. The good stuff. The bad stuff I see plenty of. Then this next one is by Carolyn Arnold, and this also, I think, was one of those email deals things. This is City of Gold. It's a Matthew Connor adventure that is very much in the vein of Indiana Jones, very much. Only this is in the present day, which you wouldn't think would work, just for whole questions of, again, racism and also colonial appropriation of culture and artifacts and whatnot. You wouldn't think it would work in the present day, and I'm not sure that it did. I'm not sure that this completely works. It's very energetic. It's a real page turner. And it stakes out its differences from Indiana Jones right at the beginning, literally in the first chapter, when our main characters are running from irate natives. Only the irate natives, as we're told, have AK-47s and body armor instead of poison darts, I think was the alternative. It's breakneck. It isn't as thoughtful as I would want, but then again, I'm probably being unfair. because, I kept reading all the way to the end, and the ending was fairly well orchestrated. So it's an adventure novel, and maybe I'm being a little too picky. I kind of wanted more. Either that's because maybe I'd read too many adventure novels in a row, as we're going to see, or maybe it's just that Carolyn Arnold on the page kept tickling my critical senses by making me think, well, you could do better than this. I can tell from your prose that you could do better than this, that you could make this better. Maybe, I don't know which of those it was, but it ended up not really satisfying me all that much. You'll notice in this Friday Reads and in any Friday Reads by me, a complete absence of star ratings or anything like that. But you could tell, whether or not I'm wholeheartedly recommending a book. Like this next one. This is by Philip Allman. I've mentioned this on this channel before, but I wanted to show it to you since a number of you sounded like you were interested in it. This is Noah and the Flood in Western Thought. And this was a PDF. I read this as a PDF. I went and got the cover for it. It's just so you'd know what it looked like and know what it was in case you want to pre-order it. I don't remember when it's coming out. But this is a story about what writers, intellects, theologians, historians, archaeologists in their embryonic form thought of what they made of this story, all of them believed it in one way or another. One way or another, they believed that Noah's flood, some version of it happened. But that raises so many questions about animal diversity all over the world, about mountain ranges, about where the water came from to submerge the whole world and where it went when it was over. And more important, perhaps, than any of those, how do you account for human civilization? If according to your myth, you're starting it with 8 people who are related to each other or coming off a boat, how on earth do you get human civilization a century later from that? And I enjoyed this. I'm going to want to reread it, but I really enjoyed this. The author walks a fine line between treating Noah's flood as fact, which it certainly is not. Noah's flood did not happen. It is obvious mythology. It did not happen. No version of it did. But for a long time, for centuries, millennia, it was the only game in town. So the smartest people in the world, literally the smartest person in the world, Isaac Newton, had to deal with it and try to reconcile it. Nothing was known of the geologic column. Nothing was known of the fossil record. Very little was known of hydrology. Nothing was known of plate tectonics. So absent all of that, the really smart thinkers over centuries had to figure out variations, answers to some of that. And this author, Philip Allman, has read it all. Oh my God. He's read people who wrote long treatises on the workability of Noah's Ark in the Middle Ages. Treatises that have not had a popular translation into English ever, or in a century and a half. He's found everything. It's amazing. So this was very enjoyable. In a way, I kind of appreciate the walking of the tightrope, because you could hand this to a believing Christian, except for the craziest ones in the world, but most believing Christians are not crazy. If you could hand this to them and they could read it right alongside their Sunday Bible studies without it upsetting the apple cart, it would get them thinking. And it's also a priceless tour through historical thinking, regardless of whether or not this event happened, and regardless of whether or not what you're taught about it at Sunday Bible studies. This will show you what lots and lots of people thought about it centuries ago. Fascinating stuff. Well done. And then I moved on to a big work of history. This is Roger Chickering. This is really the culmination of a lifetime for him, and boy, oh boy, does it read that way. It reads like a gigantic sigh. And this is the German Empire, where he looks at 50 years of, or 150 years of Germans consolidating their society, consolidating their nation after Bismarck, and eventually looking around for their place in the sun. What's the baby doing? You don't care about the Germans if you've got the baby to look at. What are you going to do? You want to go over to your chair? Go on, you can do it. Get down first, then hop over there, and there you go. All right, let's go back to where we were. There have been other books on this subject, of course, but this was really, really good. I would, again, very much like a finished copy of this. Don't think I've even had, some of you could tell me better, I lose track. I don't think we've even seen an advanced copy of this. But I would really like a finished copy of it. It was really, really good. It takes you all the way to the end of the First World War. And then, as long as we're talking about Germans and world wars, let's go to the Second World War. This is by Stephen Malinowski, and this is the Hohenzollerns and the Nazis. And this is all about the efforts that Hitler knew he had to make to kiss up to the old nobility of Germany. He knew that it would be a lot of what he wanted to do would be much easier to do if he did that than if he didn't. And it's oftentimes in accounts of Hitler's rise to power that I have read, it's been soft-soaped or overlooked how eager the Hohenzollerns were, most of them, to join with power, even if it was self-evidently evil. A lot of good personality portraits in here. I broke a rule with this book because I don't think this has the U.S. release date. I don't think it's going to be released in the United States, but I saw a review of it and in the UK, and I went and got a copy. So I went and asked for a copy so that I could read it. I don't often break that rule. I usually stick to US releases, but I thought this was really, really good. Well worth breaking the rule to do. It's always disappointing when I break that rule and the book ends up being bad. I've learned my lesson there. And it was a lot easier to break that rule when Book Depository was still around. I really, really missed them. I wish they were still around. Anyway, then we'll move on to an author writing under the pen name of William Irish. This is a murder mystery. I Married a Dead Man, which is got a green rotting corpse on the cover there. And this is a well-known story. At least it was once upon a time well-known for Hollywood adaptations. Two women meet on a train, and one of them they're both newlyweds. One of them is with her fiance, and one of them is going to meet her fiance's family she has not met. And she wants to wash her hands, so he hands her engagement ring to the other woman, and there's a massive accident with the train, and lots of people die, including one of the women, who decides, the survivor decides to assume the identity of her wealthy counterpart. Actually, that assumption is made on the part of the people who rescue her first, but she decides to go along with it. This was really good. I have not read this book in decades. Oh my God, half a century. And I really enjoyed it. It was really, really taut and well done. Just a surefire thing. This author, writing under this pen name, wrote a lot of books. A lot of books. And he must have known that he hit a great gimmick with this one. A lot of his books don't have great gimmicks at all. Some of them can be a slog. But this just, it's as peppy as I remembered. I really enjoyed it. Okay, then we have another book from one of those email sites. This is When We Let Go by Delancey Stewart, she's called a USA Today best-selling author. I don't know that I've ever read Delancey Stewart. But this is also just another contemporary romance, a woman who goes home, shattered heart, shattered life. And there's a young man who, she meets him. Her initial impulse is to stay away from him because he's wanted by, the police have their eye on him. It looks like he might be seriously shady, like he might be bad news. But at one point in about a third of the way through the book, very well done. Not a lot of this was well done, but it was very well done point about a third of the way through the book, where both these characters decide to do the title. There is a very, very conscious decision on the part of both these main characters to just say, to hell with it. And I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but in novels, most of the time when characters do that or say they're doing that, they're not really doing that, and they're hedging your bets. And there was a very good feeling in this book that they were not. Oh, do you want to come up here? Come on. You can do it. Come on, Frida. Oh, no, you don't seem to want to do that. All right, I'm losing my light, so I want to keep going. As in terms of a contemporary romance, I enjoyed this. Okay. Then we have an ongoing project of mine. This is The Case of the Curious Bride. By Earl Stanley Gardner. This is a Perry Mason story about a woman who her husband vanishes. It seems dead. The world thinks he's dead. She then finds herself in a very good marriage with a wealthy man, but the husband returns. The original husband returns and wants a lot. It doesn't necessarily want to ride off with her. And that kind of a mystery, that kind of a story is well done here. The Perry Mason novels, this is, I think, number 7 or 6 in the series. I'm reading the series in order, as palate cleansers in between other books, and as a kind of an ongoing project to figure out what's going on here. The Perry Mason novels are remarkable in a lot of ways. They look like they were written in an hour, and I think a couple of them were. But they are remarkable in how little is actually there other than the plot, including Perry Mason and his indefatigable assistant, Della Street. It's amazing how little they are in these books. They're almost absent from these books, and so are all the other characters. And I want to see if that changes over time. I want to see if Gardner gives a little more atmosphere. I don't think, if I remember correctly, I don't think he does. But I'm going at them in chronological order because I want to see that process unfold. And there's precious little of that process in this book. It was really entertaining. But you get nothing other than the plot and the red herrings. Nothing. So where is your living room window? All right, how much can it see? All right, when did you see someone go into that garage across the way? Okay, but how do you know that it was then? Because such and such was on the TV. All right, well, we better check the news and the broadcaster to see if that was actually on the TV at that time, and we're going to go through it all. Just, it holds your interest. But who is Perry Mason? That is the question that I went into this for. Della Street, I think I get. But who is Perry Mason? I read the first Perry Mason story wondering that. And I am going to read all of these until I figure that out. But I read that. I read that. Now, this next one was also a reread. But here, there's no question. Here, there's no absence of personality. Let's just put it that way. This is by Rex Stout, and this is Fer de Lance, which is the very first Nero Wolfe story, which is told by his Man Friday, Archie Goodwin, a young, dapper man who works for Nero Wolfe. Nero Wolfe almost never moves. He has his routines. He goes upstairs to his orchids. He goes to dinner. But he never leaves his brownstone. He certainly doesn't go investigating crimes. Archie Goodwin does that and reports back to him. That is this story. That this is the first of those stories where we are learning not only the story, which involves amateur aviation and a bitter father-son relationship that we think is healed, but it's not. It also involves a very interesting murder on a golf link. Someone is killed playing golf in a very outre way, and Nero Wolfe knows it right away. That's what gives him leverage all throughout the book, is that he intuits or logics his way into knowing how this person dies on the golf links. And that initial murder is a confusion to everybody, because the man was literally a saint. He had no enemies in the world. Of course, with a story like that, one of two things is going to happen. Either A, the person is going to find out not to be a saint at all, or B, the person is going to turn out not to be the intended target. It's going to be an accidental killing. And the story goes on like that, and we are learning about Nero Wolfe. We're being introduced to him very unapologetically. Archie Goodwin is telling a story, and he does not bother to defend Nero Wolfe's innumerable eccentricities. He doesn't defend them. He just says them as facts of life. We're told in this book that he's been with Nero Wolfe for about 7 years. So he's accustomed to these things by now. What readers initially reading this would have thought, I have no idea. And I read this, reread it, really liked it. Talk about a page turner. God help us, Rex Stout really knew what he was doing. Really, he did know what he was doing. I mean, he knew that, and he was willing to say that at the drop of a hat. So you don't want to give it to him, but it's true. It's absolutely true. The only thing about this novel that it confused me the first time I read it decades ago, and it confused me again this time during this Friday reads, is the snake on the cover is a Fer de Lance, an incredibly venomous cottonmouth. That you're bitten, especially if you're bitten, in 1950, you're going to die. Probably before medical help can even get to you, much less before they can do anything about it. You're going to die. And I'm not spoiling anything because it's right on the cover. At one point in this novel, whoever the bad guy is, plants a living fer-de-lance in the desk drawer of Nero Wolfe's desk in his office, so that when he opens it, the thing will attack him. And that scene plays out, and it's pretty good, it's pretty exciting, but very little, in fact, nothing at all, is made of that in the course of the book. What on earth? I'm still not understanding. Virtually nothing is made of that. And when there is the stereotypical, I'll bring all the suspects into the room to talk about them at the end of the book scene, no one even mentions that somebody walked in a 6-foot long snake. It's a gimmick, in other words, but it's ordinarily Rex Stout is better with his gimmicks, I guess. and then since you can't just read one, I went and read another Nero Wolfe book. I think Fer-de-Lance is number one. I think this is number two. I think accidentally I may be reading these in chronological order as well, although not like the Perry Mason books. I'm not looking to figure out who Nero Wolfe is, because his personality is all over these books. And so is Archie Goodwin's. As usual, when you reread Nero Wolfe, you come to like Archie Goodwin more and more. And this is Murder by the Book. And it ultimately is the story of a manuscript. It's a manuscript that everybody thinks everybody else has read. Nobody can pin down who's actually seen it. But everybody who's connected with it is dying. The author of it, the literary agent that read it and turned it down for her house, the woman who typed the manuscript. Everyone connected with this manuscript is dying, being murdered. So Nero Wolfe and Archie Goodwin figure, well, okay, so somebody connected with this manuscript has got to be the killer. And the book goes on in such odd ways. The Nero Wolfe books, at least these two, I'm gonna reread these things from the ground up. But one thing that I'm noticing, especially since in the time between when I originally read this and now I've tried my hand at writing murder mysteries, one thing I've noticed is how little is left to mystery here. Nero Wolfe, except for one moment at the end of this book, but otherwise he just tells Inspector Kramer, he just tells people what he knows. And even when Archie Goodwin is telling him not to, when Archie Goodwin is saying, you should hold that to your vest, he's not doing it. And you would think that would ruin the book, and it doesn't. I don't know by what alchemy it doesn't, but it doesn't ruin the book at all. The suspense of not knowing is almost completely dispensed with, and you're still hooked. You're still turning pages. And also, the one little detail here is at one point in this book, Archie Goodwin has to fly from New York to California, and boy, oh boy, do you see a different world there. You see that aviation technology has improved. But anyway, that was another Nero Wolfe, and I went on from there to another very much of its time, very much of a piece, murder thriller type thing by Michael Innes, who I am rereading slowly but surely, and I am really enjoying what I'm doing. This is The Man from the Sea, an old vintage cover there, where our main character, who's not the man from the sea, he's a young man with more courage than brains, something that Michael Innes knew very little about personally, but was happy to write about. A refreshing number of his main characters are young men, under the age of 25. Which is great. I'm not 100% sure how old Archie Goodwin is in those first Nero Wolfe books, but I think he's older than 25. He's called a young man or a stripling by a few characters, but I think he's old enough to know better. Whereas Michael and his characters are often very young. I like that. That's nice. I'd rather not have the author going, to the usual lengths to try to convince me of how hard-bitten and experienced this character is. Just make him young, and then you don't have to do that. This character is at the seaside waiting for his lady love when he sees a naked man walk out of the ocean. And there's going to be a story there, and I knew the story because I read this book eons ago. But I'd forgotten key details here and there. I'd certainly forgotten I won't call it a MacGuffin, but there's a twist that sets off the climax of this book. There's a twist that sets off the last 60 pages, and I had forgotten that twist. Good and proper, I had forgotten it. So once I read it, I remembered it, but I didn't know it coming. I didn't know it was coming. It was great. I really enjoyed this. I am totally on board to reread all of Michael Ennis. Totally on board. The Man from the Sea is just successful. It just completely works as a page-turning thriller, as what I suppose now would be called an airport thriller. Do you want to come up here? You could do it. There you go. You want to go up there? There you go. And then the last thing for this Friday Reads is a new book. I don't know that it's out yet. It's edited by P.N. Singer, and it's an anthology of English language translations of the writings of Galen. the quasi-legendary proto-doctor, Galen. Was terrific. This is just terrific. It's got a great critical apparatus. The selections from Galen are extremely well chosen. You will read this thanking your stars that you live in an age of modern medicine, even if it's not affordable. In America, it's not affordable. We live in the age of modern medicine, but you can't have it because an ambulance ride is $1,500 just to get you to the emergency room. Then in the emergency room, even though your abdomen is bleeding from an abscess, the average waiting time is 18 hours before you see anyone. So you go to your emergency room, and the average waiting time of you just sitting there bleeding is 18 hours. So it could be less than 18 hours, but it could also be twice 18 hours that you're sitting there waiting, starving to death, dying of dehydration in the waiting room, before you can even get to a doctor who will then ask you first, not what happened to your abdomen, but how insured are you? Even though that's true, at least we know more. At least you know, you've got WebMD. Whereas this, people just groping in the dark. But fascinating. Really fascinating. I'm really hoping, I don't know how this works, but I'm really hoping this becomes a Penguin Classic. That would be great. It'd be great if it were. But anyway, that is Friday Reads, while I lose the light and I have dog acrobatics going on. Sorry about that. That's a Friday Reads, a partial one for me. And I'd love to know, as usual with Friday Reads, I'd love to know what you're reading, how your reading week has been. Have you had a good reading week? I had my reading week a little more than a week ago. It was really distracted, but that actually had long windows where all I wanted to do was read. And then this week I've been making up for lost time with lots and lots of reading. But I'd love to know from you, how's your reading week been going? But I'm losing the light here. I'm becoming a spectral presence here, so I'm going to wrap this up. And I don't know, maybe I should not do any more videos. I had a couple more videos I wanted to do. I'll turn on the lights and see how it looks. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. But I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.